Okay, so I'm the founder and CEO of OkHi, and we're addressing emerging markets. And what we mean by that is there's 4 billion people in the world who don't have an address. And we believe it's a human right that every single person in the world should have an address, because with an address, your life gets better. So we're trying to give the 4 billion people in the world who don't have an address a physical address so their life can get better. So in many countries in the world, like here in Kenya, there isn't a physical address system that exists in many developed countries. So sometimes there's streets, but often there's not streets. More often than not, there aren't house numbers. And so it makes it very difficult for any kind of business to try and reach either someone's house or someone's workplace. So the way people solve it today is with like long descriptions, directions of how to get there. You know, the typical thing is, you know, turn left at this road. Once you get over the second speed bump, turn right. In fact, the favorite is a friend got told, once you get into the village, turn left at where the goats used to graze. So it's a problem because actually it's just super inefficient. And as computers are starting to come in and providing all sorts of benefits, whether it's in logistics or whether it's in banking to understand the customers more, these computers can't understand where people are because they can't understand where the goats used to graze. So we're trying to enable basically a new generation of an address system that allows these people, anyone of these 4 billion people, to say, okay, this is my address, this is where I live, this is where I work. And then with that, they can get the benefits, whether it's about getting an ambulance to their house, or whether it's about getting food delivered, or whether it's about getting a bank loan, because now the bank knows who you are and trusts where you live. So I used to work at Google, and I was supposed to be moving to San Francisco. I've been at Google for 6.5 years, and I decided that I wanted a bit of a break, so I took a 3-month sabbatical and traveled around Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, Ghana. I knew nothing about the countries just because I was fascinated about, you know, what's going on in these countries. You know, they're getting more politically stable. They're going through this inflection point where suddenly technology is going to be ubiquitous in the matter of 5-10 years. So I was fascinating at what that means for businesses and people who are living in these countries. So I took that sabbatical and just got inspired that I think as an entrepreneur, what excites me is essentially solving big problems, right? That as a technology and a geek is what gets me excited. So coming to a market like Kenya, you know, you realize that there's just so many big problems that technology can solve. And really for the first time, I mean, people have been talking about mobile phone penetration for a while, but it's really this smartphone penetration that's just about to kick off. You know, right now Kenya is at maybe about 15% smartphone penetration. People predict it'll be up to 30% by 2017. I'm actually more bullish than that. You know, I think once smartphones get down below $40, which they're almost there, we're just going to see this crazy exponential growth. And for the first time, you're going to have people across the country having access to smartphones and the internet. And as an entrepreneur, you can now reach them and solve problems for them through the internet, through their smartphones for the first time. So it's really about having a bigger chance to solve a bigger problem. I don't know, I'm not sure it's a very good lens to think through, but sometimes I imagine myself as like an old cruddy man in a dressing gown and flip-flops. Maybe not flip-flops, what are they called? Slippers. Maybe flip-flops, maybe I'll be a trendy granddad. In front of the TV, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to be stuck in London doing whatever I was doing. It was a great job and I loved it, but like, I want to try something new and take a risk and, you know, learn and meet new people. And I want to make sure that when I'm 80 in my flip-flops, that I don't have any regrets. And I think if I didn't try something new, then I would always have a regret. So I've got a bit of a philosophy. I had a failed startup while I was at Google. I tried to build sort of 12, 18 months, launched it, failed because we built everything in isolation. And so I have this philosophy where when you're building a business, it's all about trying to find the right problem to solve. I think generally people talk about ideas, but an idea assumes a solution to a problem. And the problem is that, when I had this idea of my last startup and it failed, I had nothing to fall back on. It failed and that was it. I had to close up shop and try and think of something else. Whereas if you're really focused on a problem, if you try something and it fails, the problem's still there and it still exists. So you can then just try something else and fall back to that. So, we again have used a lot of research and data to prove that we're on the right track. But who knows? But if we fail along this track, we're going to go straight back to the problem and think of another way to solve it. That's a good question. So I also have a slightly unique perspective on this. So when I was at Google for 2 years, I tried to build the developer ecosystem across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So I was looking at the developer ecosystem in London 5-6 years ago, and even out in sub-Saharan Africa. And really, I think the biggest thing that's missing, that still is missing, is basically the lack of mentorship. Look, this is the first time really, truly for me, being a CEO and running a company, and most of the time you're like, I don't know, I've got questions, and if you can have the right people to help guide you or ask the right questions that make you think about the business in a different way. The hardest thing when you're an entrepreneur is you're just in the weeds, and you're always thinking about that next release and you've got to get this out. And actually, often the best entrepreneurs spend time thinking out of that box and thinking much more forward and about hiring and the strategic direction of the company. And it's very hard to do, and mentors are just so crucial to that line of thinking. So I do everything I can to try and build my own personal network of mentors. I suppose because I hadn't really thought about winning, I hadn't really thought about expectations, but I'm super excited about meeting all the entrepreneurs from different countries in the world. It sounds like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet other people who probably think in the similar vein, but from all different lifestyles and places in the world. I'm really excited about pitching in front of investors. I suppose it's pretty intimidating, and I think a little nerve-wracking to think about. Okay, so here are investors in Switzerland. Switzerland of all countries has a very good address system and everything works, and so this problem of lack of addressing is not something that necessarily the Swiss investors will feel firsthand, but I do know they have a lot of knowledge in other emerging markets, and that's why they're there. So I hope that I can communicate the problem to them, and that they can be interested in potentially supporting us, and whether that's financially or even advisory, helping OkHi give an address to those 4 billion people.